An Egyptian brokered ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinian Hamas group in the Gaza Strip will begin on Thursday. The deal is aimed at easing a crippling Israeli blockade of the coastal territory. However, Israel's defense authorities are keeping expectations low, as there was violence in the Gaza Strip shortly before the truce was announced. Gui Xiaozeng has more.
Hamas official Mahmoud al-Zahar announced the truce deal with Israel at a news conference in Gaza City. The ceasefire accepted by both sides will be for 6 months. Israel's prime minister says Israeli residents living across the volatile border with Gaza will have calm one way or the other.
We are doing everything to make it calm there. Either they will understand on their own it's not in their interest, or we will make them understand that it's not worth it for them to keep attacking. Residents of the south are entitled to live in quiet, and it's our commitment to provide that.
Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh says his group believes the ceasefire will hold and be beneficial to Palestinians living in the coastal enclave.
The Palestinian demands are clear: lifting the siege and blockade, opening the crossing and ending the aggression. And we believe that these demands have been met. The Palestinian people will see the fruit of these negotiations and dialogues.
Shortly before the announcement, 6 militants were killed in Israeli airstrikes in the Gaza Strip. Israel's defense minister was cautious about the prospect of a ceasefire taking hold, but said his country will give it every chance.
The possibility of reaching a calm in the near future is being examined this evening. It's too early to announce the calm, and even if it begins, it's difficult to assess how long it will last. We are ready for any development, but it's important to exhaust the chance for a calm in order to promote quiet for communities surrounding Gaza.
Under the truce, the blockade Israel imposed on the Gaza Strip after Hamas seized the territory a year ago will be eased gradually and partially. The truce is also aimed at ending rocket and mortar bomb attacks on Israel from the Gaza Strip and Israeli raids in the territory. Gui Xiaozeng, CCTV.
The U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee is holding a hearing on methods used to question detainees at Guantanamo Bay. The hearing is the committee's first look at the origins of harsh interrogation methods and how policy decisions were made by the Defense Department. Zheng Siwei has more.
A Senate investigation says the U.S. military, in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, pursued abusive interrogation techniques, despite stern warnings by several military lawyers that the methods were cruel and illegal. The findings have drawn fresh criticism of the Pentagon's policies from both Democrats and Republicans.
Now, the guidance that was provided during this period of time, I think, will go down in history as some of the most irresponsible and short-sighted legal analysis ever provided to our nation's military and intelligence communities.
The White House was quick to respond to the Republican senator's remarks.
We have great respect for Lindsey Graham. We're not going to, review every legal opinion that has ever been proffered by this government. I'm telling you what our policy has been to deal with these detainees humanely, get the information from them that we can to protect this country.
The panel is expected to hold further hearings and release a final report by the end of the year. Zheng Siwei, CCTV.
Russia says Georgia has detained 4 Russian peacekeepers and a military truck in the conflict zone between Georgia and its periphery region of Abkhazia. Russian TASS news agency confirmed the detainment of 4 troops from the collective peacekeeping force and vehicle with ammunition on Tuesday. But Georgia accuses the peacekeepers of transporting ammunition and shells without coordination with the Caucasus states in the conflict region. Relations between Russia and Georgia are strained because of Georgia's bid to join NATO and Russia's alleged support of the periphery region. Time now to take a brief look at some other news making headlines around the world.
A car bomb tore through a market area in a mainly Shiite neighborhood of the Iraqi capital on Tuesday. It was the deadliest attack of this type in more than 3 months, killing more than 50 people and wounding dozens. There have been no claims of responsibility. The blast has shattered the relative calm in Baghdad following stepped-up security measures. Peru's Prime Minister Jorge del Castillo met with political leaders from 2 of the country's southern regions on Tuesday in an attempt to clear thousands of protesters from the Pan-American Highway and free around 60 police officers held hostage. Protesters blocked the highway a week ago to demand a bigger share of regional mining royalties. A provincial mayor has expressed hope an agreement will be made. Argentine President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner announced Tuesday that contentious grain export taxes will now be handled by the Argentine Congress. Fernández hiked grain export taxes in early March by presidential decree, igniting a 3-month standoff between the government and farmers. Protesting farmers have emptied supermarket shelves of food and blocked exports of soybeans and corn. A spokesman for the farmers says representatives are meeting to decide whether to suspend protests following the president's announcement.
Still to come after a short break. Economists say they expect a new round of development to begin after this year's Beijing Olympic Games. And China's mainland announces details of weekly chartered flights across the Taiwan Straits.
Every time when I touch upon this land, I feel overwhelmed by her charm. Industrious people, loving faces, international market. Every day, she makes me feel fresh. Yiwu, the place I've been dreaming for. Yiwu, the place where my dreams come true. Yiwu, China.
Happy China, wonderful Jilin.
Yangtze Three Gorges, Shenlongjia, Wudang Mountain, Three Kingdoms Relics, Wuhan Metropolitan Area. Welcome to Hubei.
Olympics in Beijing, travel in China. China International Travel Map 2008 in November, Shanghai.
Discover the mystery of China.
Thousand Island Lake, the ideal place to relax. Hangzhou.
Discover the mystery of China.
Thousand Island Lake, the ideal place to relax. Hangzhou.
Happy China, wonderful Jilin.
An intimate rendezvous with nature, Futushan, China.
Lean unto your body, and true love, there can be no distance.
In love's true moments, the Chinese color is my only choice. True love for real man. The 7-brand Chinese color. True Love series.
An intimate rendezvous with nature, Futushan, China. CCTV9, China's only English-language news channel, broadcasts throughout China and across the globe. CTV Golden Bridge is CCTV International's exclusive advertising agent and can put your company in touch with an audience of millions.
Now for a recap of our main stories this hour. Chinese Vice President Xi Jinping visits the PRK as the two countries aim to further improve bilateral cooperation. China and the US pledge to further expand cooperation at the fourth round of the Sino-US Strategic Economic Dialogue. Floodwaters in South China's Guangdong province begin to recede as the Guangxi-Zhuang Autonomous Region is hit by more heavy rain. And new ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinian Hamas group in the Gaza Strip is set to begin on Thursday. Well, we're still locked joins us now with all the latest business news. We still hear that the dollar is gaining against yuan.
In fact, I think it's yuan is gaining again.
Yuan is gaining again, or dollar is gaining again. That's your turn.
Yeah, so yuan is gaining against the dollar. It's quite confusing because as it goes down from 8.11 to 3 years ago to now 6.8. In fact, the China yuan has become more valuable against the greenback. The central bank has set a new midpoint for the exchange rate against the dollar at 6.8823. Now, this is the highest for the Chinese currency since it was depegged and revalued in July 2005. The yuan has now appreciated a further 17.84% since it was revalued almost 3 years ago, up by 2.1% to 8.11 yuan per dollar. Meanwhile, the yuan's highest trading peak was reached on Tuesday, and that was at 6.8909 to the greenback. Now moving on now, most countries who have played host to the Olympics have drawn enormous economic benefits, certainly in the lead up to the event. But several have then had to suffer a bit of a slump after the euphoria of the Games. Eyes are now turning to Beijing as the Summer Olympics draws ever closer. And despite the gloom and doom chatter, many analysts say they do not expect any downturn after this massive sporting event. Chun Yujun explains why they are so upbeat.
The director of the National Economic Research Institute at the China Forum Foundation was speaking at the Beijing Forum on the economy in the context of the Olympics. Fan Gang said he's very optimistic about the health and growth of the economy even after the Games end in August.
Because of the construction of Olympic venues, Beijing has postponed the building of some of its infrastructure, and this will help support Beijing's economy after the Olympics. Of course, preventing an overheating economy is always a concern. But China has been making adjustments since the end of 2007. So we expect a new round of development to begin after the Olympic Games.
Meanwhile, Gerhard Heiberg, chairman of the International Olympic Committee Marketing Commission, says he thinks the tourism and manufacturing sectors will benefit most from the event.
There are a lot of tourists coming into China after the Games. Business and industry will be booming after the Games. So long term, China will have benefits. Not only Beijing, but all of China will benefit from having the Games.
Heiberg added that he thinks the Olympics will also drive growth in China's sports sector. China's sports industry is still relatively underdeveloped, but the Summer Games could bring valuable opportunities, with many international sporting events often choosing to use venues in former Olympic host countries. Chen Lijun, CCTV.
Well, aviation authorities on the mainland have revealed details of allocations for weekly chartered flights between Taiwan and the mainland. The mainland's three largest airlines all have double the allotment given to smaller airlines. China Southern, Air China and China Eastern each have 4 round-trip flights every week. With smaller regional carriers, these are Hainan Airlines, Shanghai Airlines and Xiamen Airlines, operating half that volume at just 2 round-trip flights to Taiwan every week. Tuesday's announcement provided a detailed timetable for full implementation of a landmark deal signed just last week. One of the high points of the deal was 36 round-trip flights across Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday, all due to start early next month. Well, time to look at markets around the region. Japanese stocks were largely flat on Wednesday as investors flocked to topical stocks, while some exporters fell on a slightly stronger yen. Market participants say the market lacks any specific direction, but that buying into stocks futures could help push up the overall market. But a stronger yen is curbing profits for exporters. On that, as you can see on that chart, Canon fell almost 1%. Meanwhile, NEC Electronics jumped 9.5% after Goldman Sachs, as you can see on that chart there, raised its rating to buy from neutral. It's citing the possibility of the firm's earnings beating market forecasts on growth of its system on chips with dynamic random access memory. These are used for television sets and mobile handsets. A quick look at the latest figures now. Nikkei is up 0.4, Seoul up 0.36, and the Singapore Straits Times that is down 0.42%. We look at the Hong Kong SAR. Shares opened flat this morning after a very choppy session on Wall Street and continued weakness in the mainland markets. Analysts say buying interest is likely to remain subdued a day after the main board turnover in Hong Kong dropped to its lowest level in more than a year. The Hang Seng Index closed on Tuesday, barely changed at 23,057 points. But their stocks to watch today: China Southern Airlines, Air China and China Eastern, as we mentioned earlier, have each been given 4 slots a week for flights to Taiwan, while Hainan Airlines, Shanghai Airlines and China Southern, subsidiary that's Xiamen Airlines, will operate 2 weekly flights, and the services will begin on July the 4th. You can see the effect of that announcement on the figures there. In more encouraging news, oil prices fell overnight, with U.S. crude oil settling down at $134 per barrel. That is a sharp correction from Monday's intraday high of $139.89. Refiner Sinopec, which bucked Tuesday's directionless market to rise sharply, is expected to add to its gains there. Meanwhile, telecom stocks may be the only bright spots in today's trading. Analysts say valuations of these stocks have taken on a positive glow after recent losses, so there may be room for more upside there. A quick look at the figures for now. Hang Seng is down 0.248, shares down. Red chips also very red, they're down 0.5%. Looking at the mainland, shares continue to slide amid further blows to market sentiment, and this is after the composite index fell below 2,800 points yesterday. Tuesday saw the benchmark Shanghai Composite close down 2.76% at 2,794. It was largely dragged down by big caps. However, analysts say that soothing comments on the stock market by Li Deshui, the former National Bureau of Statistics Director, will ease worries somewhat, as will a new license issued for the Qualified Foreign Institutional Investor Program. Li has said that the sharp decline in the stock market is, quote, temporary, with China's economic fundamentals still very strong indeed. Meanwhile, Belgium's KBC Asset Management NV said late yesterday that it had been granted a QFII license by China's securities regulator, a development which will create expectations of further fund inflows. The company says it is now awaiting approval from the foreign exchange regulator for its quota. Meanwhile, China Minsheng Bank could be active after the bank announced that 2.12 billion of its A shares are emerging from their lockup period, becoming available for trading on the Shanghai Stock Exchange on Monday next week. A quick look now at the latest figures, all tracking down. Shanghai down 1%, Shenzhen also down, and B shares there down in Shanghai 1.7%, Shenzhen going up very slightly, while the overall 300 that is down 0.26%. That's all from me. Back to Liang Hong.
Okay, thank you, Wei Su. Well, still to come after a short break on NewsHour. The Beijing Olympic torch relay passes through the city of Kashgar, a second stop in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. And a tragedy in the world of sport. Chinese driver Xu Lang dies after an accident during the Trans-Oriental Rally. Well, Jennifer joins us now with all the latest sports news, where the torch relay is in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, right?
Yes, it continues over there. Thank you very much, Liang Hong. The Olympic torch relay continues its domestic tour, as Liang Hong just mentioned. It has just passed through its second stop in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, that being Kashgar City. The relay started at 9:45 this morning at the Idka Square. A total of 208 torchbearers participated in this round. That's the same number as the previous stop over in Urumqi. The first torchbearer was Chinese ace high-wire walker Adeli. Adeli is the descendant of a Uyghur family with a 430-year history in the field of acrobatics known as Dawazi in western China. The relay covered a distance of 6.5 kilometers and lasted about 2 hours. It ended at the Kashgar People's Square. Kashgar is west of the Taklamakan Desert in southern Xinjiang and about 1,500 kilometers from Urumqi. The torch relay will be held in 2 other cities in the region, first in Shihezi and then Changji. Well, the Olympic torch relay in Tibet has been rescheduled for June the 21st. The Beijing Organizing Committee for the Olympic Games, otherwise known as BOCOG, made the announcement on Tuesday. The Tibet leg will now start from the Tibetan capital of Lhasa on Saturday. Now, according to the previous plan, the torch would have arrived in Tibet on Thursday and leave on Saturday. BOCOG made these changes because of the May 12th earthquake, which devastated the southwest region of China. Turning now to basketball news, the Boston Celtics have captured and recorded their 17th NBA championship by trouncing the Los Angeles Lakers 131-92 in Game 6 on Tuesday. This is also the Celtics' first victory since the Larry Bird era 22 years ago. They clinched the best-of-7 series 4-2. Boston took control of the game in the second quarter and turned a 4-point lead into a 58-35 advantage by intermission. The second half only saw the gap enlarge between the two sides as Boston finally sealed the victory. Kevin Garnett contributed 26 points and 14 rebounds, and this is his first taste of the NBA title after transferring from the Timberwolves, where he played for 12 years. Ray Allen added 26 points, including 7 3-pointers. League MVP Kobe Bryant led the Lakers with 22 points, but hit only 7 of 22 shots and was largely a non-factor after the opening quarter when he had only 11 points. Well, the latest now from Euro 2008. World champions Italy have fought their way back from the exit door by beating 10-man France 2-0 on Tuesday. The Italian side will now face Spain in the quarterfinal. France not only lost inspirational playmaker Frank Ribery to a knee injury after only 9 minutes, but also had defender Eric Abidal sent off for hauling down Luca Toni in the area. Andrea Pirlo converted the resulting penalty in the 25th minute. Daniel De Rossi made sure of Italy's victory on 62 minutes when his free kick was deflected into the net off the foot of Thierry Henry. The victory, coupled with Romania's 2-0 defeat by the Netherlands in Bern, secures Italy's place in the last 8. Klaas-Jan Huntelaar side-footed home in the 54th minute from a right-wing cross by Abraham Afellay. Well, Robin van Persie ensured them victory with a furious left-foot drive in the 87th minute after expertly controlling a free kick by Demi Dezu. 100% record at the top of Group C and play Sweden or Russia in a quarterfinal tie on Saturday. Standing in second, Italy will meet Spain in the quarterfinals in Vienna on Sunday. And then on Wednesday, Spain will play their final Group D game against European champions Greece, knowing that whatever the result, they're still going safely through to the quarterfinals. Russia will play a crucial game against Sweden, who need only a draw to go through to the quarterfinals. Well, former Spanish international Pep Guardiola was officially unveiled as Barcelona's new coach on Tuesday. The 37-year-old wasted no time at all in announcing that senior stars Ronaldinho, Samuel Eto'o, and Deco were not going to be part of his plans for the 2008-2009 season. The trio have already been linked with transfers to clubs in England and Italy. Ronaldinho with AC Milan, Chelsea, and Manchester City. Eto'o with Milan and Deco with Chelsea.
If I and all of us felt that Ronaldinho wants to be a player he used to be, the player that we all used to watch playing, there wouldn't be a coach in the world that wouldn't want him as part of his team. But I'm afraid that the present circumstances speak for themselves. The situation has deteriorated, and I think that the only way to make this team work is to have a strong team. I understand that the only way to achieve that is through all us feeling important.
A rally marked by fatality. The number of deaths in the Transoriental Rally is now up to 2 after another driver died on Tuesday. A serious accident occurred in Stage 6, which is a 328-kilometer leg between Karatubac and Torgay. On his KTM bike, French motorcyclist Philippe Tonin of Team Junco Loctite collided with Truck 401 of Team Kamaz. Despite receiving immediate medical attention, Tonin's injuries were just too severe and he died on site. In Stage 5 of the rally, China's Xu Lang also sustained injuries from his accident, but died in the hospital on Tuesday. Despite the shadow hanging over the stage, motorcyclists Jaroslav Katroyak and Paul Anders Ulevau-Sieter continued to perform well and handle the new terrain quite safely. Stage 7 will take place on Wednesday from Arkalik to Botakara, with high speeds expected despite the challenging conditions. Well, as we just mentioned, Chinese driver Xu Lang from the Team Desud Zhengzhou Nissan team also died on Tuesday after suffering a serious head injury during the Trans-Oriental Rally the day before. Several drivers found themselves and their machines trapped in mud at the 73rd kilometer mark of the race. The competitors were trying to help drag each other out of the mess. A trailer was trying to tow Xu's plunged off-roader out of the mud when the hook suddenly broke off and hit him in the forehead. Xu was taken to a hospital in Orenburg, Russia, but he died from his injuries on Tuesday. Xu's team manager has arrived at the hospital and family members are now on their way. Well, that's going to do it for this sports update. I'll be back at 4:15 with another look at sports. Right now, back to Liang Hong at the news desk.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. And finally, a recap of our headline news at this hour. Chinese Vice President Xi Jinping visits the DPRK as the two countries aim to further improve bilateral cooperation. China and the US pledge to further expand cooperation at the fourth round of the Sino-US Strategic Economic Dialogue. Floodwaters in South China's Guangdong province begin to recede as the Guangxi-Zhuang Autonomous Region is hit by more heavy rain. A new ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinian Hamas group in the Gaza Strip is set to begin on Thursday. China's mainland announces details of weekly chartered flights across the Taiwan Straits. The Beijing Olympic torch relay passes through the city of Kashgar, its second stop in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. And a tragedy in the world of sport. Chinese driver Xu Lang dies after an accident during the Trans-Oriental Rally. Well, that's all of our time for this edition of NewsHour. I'm now in Beijing. Thanks for watching.